Hey scrappers, recyclers, and investors, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we're talking about things that are going on in the precious metals market, industrial metals market. We've got a safety tip for the week, and then we talk about other things that have come up that are in our wonderful world of scrap and recycling. It is great to be here with everybody. We have quite a bit of interesting stuff to talk about today. First, let's get in here and say hello to everybody who has joined us early on. We've got Scrapping Irish, Electronic Scrapper, welcome. David Fillet, welcome. Great to have y'all here. Andy Patadoo is in the house, welcome. Great to have y'all on board. I'm sure we'll have a bunch more folks joining us as we proceed along. So, what do you say we get right into our precious metal discussion for today? We're talking silver. And what the heck is going on? Silver is down at 68.62. Now, first of all, I just want to point out that it is interesting in a funny kind of way that we look at $68 silver and we're saying, oh my God, I can't believe how much silver has dropped. Well, because we had that huge spike not too long ago. So, you know, there is that. All right, here we are on the APMEX website. Again, I am not sponsored by APMEX. I do not get anything from them. They are just one of the sites that I use to buy and sell my physical gold and silver. So I guess I really should rephrase what I said. I said I don't get anything from them, which is not true. I buy things from them, and I get very good service from them, but I don't get any remuneration from them because I'm not sponsored. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Anyway, they're one of a few that I've used, Kitco and JM Bullion. They're all good services. APMEX is just the one that I tend to use the most. We're looking at silver here at 68.62, down 15% for the week. Holy cow. For the week. Let's see. Let's take a look here for the month. And yeah, you can see what's going on here. We've got silver was kind of dropping off here. Then we get to right about here where we start bombing Iran, and we see the prices going down even more. We saw the same kind of thing play out with gold. So, you know, it's we're going to talk about what's going on here in just a minute. Let's get over here to our 1 year, and we saw that we had a nice run up in silver. We had this nice spike up here, and hopefully some folks were able to take advantage of that and sell off some of their gold and make some bucks on it. Then it crashes, and now we are down. Wait a minute, let me get the right thing here. Come on. So then it crashes, and you know, now we've been dealing with a bunch of volatility in here for silver as multiple things have played out to influence what's going on in the world of precious metals. If we go over to our trading economics website, we see that same thing with a bit more granularity here. I want to bring up the candlestick chart, and we see all of this going on. I'm going to zoom in here on this later portion. All right, so here we are. Here is January 29. Here is January 30. Here is February 28. So silver plunged 5% to 69.5 on Friday, marking a 14% weekly collapse as the Middle East conflict drives energy prices higher and crushed hopes for monetary easing. This is really important because this is what's happening for gold and silver. The sell-off escalated after reports of expanded U.S. military deployment in the region, pushing traders to assign a 50% probability to a Federal Reserve rate hike. Now remember, we had been looking at a a decrease in rates going into this, before the U.S.-Israeli attack began. Now they're talking about the very real possibility of a rate hike. And why does that matter? Well, when the Fed raises the rate, that's what the banks use when they're exchanging money, it raises the interest on all of the other loan type things. And investors then can make money off of interest and dividends. Bond yields go up, and investors then start to say, all right, well, gold and silver don't pay me any interest. They just sit there. And while they may be a good hedge, they're not earning me any money. So I'm going to take that money and I'm going to get some stuff that's going to earn me some interest. Now, the other thing is that as prices fell because of increasing oil and gas costs, well, some investors got stuck and they had to pay off some bills. And the way that they're paying off their bills is to sell that gold and silver that they were buying before as a hedge. And now they're selling their gold and silver in order to cover some of these losses. So you put these things together, and what we see is silver and gold dropping pretty quickly. So we can see here, this one candlestick is 1 day of trading. And you can see this huge drop here on the 30th of January. Then we're bouncing around here for a while with silver kind of gone up and down and up and down. Then we get into, here we are, the attacks take place, they start, silver's dropping off and keeps going down. This is, this here is what we're dealing with, and it's probably going to continue for a while, because as we continue with the conflict and the Straits of Hormuz is blocked up, we have things like oil and natural gas and fertilizer. 20% of the world's supply of these materials flowed through the Straits of Hormuz. This has a significant impact on prices. You can see over here, gasoline is going up, heating oil is going up, Brent's up, crude oil's up. So all of those things raising the cost of energy and fertilizer, which will impact the cost of food. And that's what's driving up the interest rates, which is going to make precious metals not quite as, an interesting investment for the big investors. All right, so I want to go back here. Let's go all the way back here. Let's get to the line chart again. And let's see, what are they talking about for a forecast for silver? Well, they're still showing silver with a upward trend. And we're going to get back over $80 sometime in the next 12 months. Now, of course, a lot of this depends on what happens with the conflict over in the Middle East, because that's going to continue to have a huge play on this. And what the analysts at Trading Economics are suggesting is that at some point, whether it's the conflict comes to some sort of end or the markets deal with it, eventually investors start going back into precious metals at some point out here in the future. Now, silver also has a big play as an industrial metal, more so than gold. So there are other aspects of silver beyond just the precious metal play that influence its pricing. But right now, this is what we're looking at with this drop and potentially climbing out, but right now it's dropping. And so for us in the scrap and recycling world, the question becomes, what are we doing with our silver stuff? Now, we don't generate a lot of silver bearing material. I mean, there's actually quite a bit of, I don't want to say quite a bit, but there's silver in a lot of the gold bearing material that we produce, right? A lot of the electronics, the circuit boards and such, they'll have a little bit of silver on them. So there is, some silver potential there, but not nearly as much as gold. And gold is what usually drives our scrap circuit boards and electronics. But there is some silver out there. Prices are dropping off, so if your yard does buy silver bearing materials, probably those prices have already dropped or will drop, because there's only so much value there. Plus, it can be, it's tricky to get silver out, especially, unless you're talking about a silver, like a silver plated or sterling silver, those kind of things, which can be a little easier, but, it's, there's only so much of that goes around as scrap, and usually it's way overpriced. So what have you all done with silver? I'm going to go ahead and leave this chart up. We're going to go over and see who all else has joined us and what you all may have done with silver. Oh, so let's see here. I'm going back up in the chat to see where I left off. All right, JR Cat has joined us. E-Waste Mike has joined us. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you all here. D Scraps is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Solers is in the house. Everyday Solers. Great to have you with us today. I see folks saying hi to everybody, but yeah, D saying boards went down. They sure did. Yeah, gold took enough of a hit long enough that the value had to go down. Board Sort lowered their prices. A lot of folks lowered their prices. Absolutely. More folks saying hi, back and forth. Hello, Carl. Great to have you here. Nice to see you again. Sister G123 has joined us. Welcome, Sister G. I'm looking for silver comments and anybody that may have joined us. I'm going through. JR Cat it continues stockpiling. So JR Cat is just loading up on stuff. Hasn't sold up any. Plain Scrapper's in the house. Welcome, Plain Scrapper. Sister G is holding silver. Yeah, we're healing up nice. Getting strong, doing some good PT, getting my flexibility back, and it's not fun when we do the flexibility exercises, but we're getting there. And Carl's saying that he's still investing in silver at this point and refining gold. Okay, very cool. The Bookmasters here. Welcome. Great to have you here. Any of into coins also, since they are, I think you're asking if any of us are into coins. Certainly there are some folks here who have in previous discussions talked about junk silver, which is essentially coins. And then there are a number of folks who then also invest in silver coins, as in Eagles and Britannias and stuff that are from the government mints, or silver rounds, which people sometimes call coins because they're round and they look like a coin. So yes, there are folks here that are definitely doing the coin thing. And let's see, what do we got going here? What would you recommend if one has a good amount of Cuban 0.999 from the 80s and 90s from the mints? I assume you're talking silver. And, I'd say, you had your opportunity to sell a bunch of it when silver was over 100. If you didn't do that, I would hang on to it and watch for the prices to come back up again. That would be my call right now. Unless you just need some cash, because hey, silver prices are still pretty good, where we're at. So if you definitely need some cash, maybe sell a little bit. Otherwise, hang on to it and wait for those prices to come back up. Let's see here. Michael Anthony, welcome. Great to have you here. PAG's announced 0.26 dividend since oil been going up. That's silver and gold both selling off. Yeah, that's been a big deal. That's silver and gold have definitely been selling off here with the impact of the war playing out. No, I haven't even started looking. Have not even. Well, yeah, I kind of have started looking just so I can get a feel for where the market is right now and what's available, but I'm not seriously looking at this point. JR Cat, I might have some junk. Oh, that's funny. And the Bunkmeister saying that's the plan. Don't need to cash. I'll sit on it. Yeah, he clarified in the next statement, don't. So he's going to be sitting on it for a while. So that's cool. Roger is here. Roger, welcome to the show. Always good to have you. Didn't get your alert. I hate when that happens. But it happens sometimes. It's unfortunate, but yeah, that'll happen sometimes. And I have no idea why that happens. YouTube is weird like that. I just don't know. Hey, our safety topic today, and this one absolutely came from my experience this week. So because I'm feeling a lot better and my right leg, my new knee is a lot stronger, I was doing some yard work this week, and it really is telling to me that my new artificial knee, while my right leg was muscle sore from being a little out of shape and a little bit sore from when I would flex it, because I was trying to actually exercise it and flex it. It didn't hurt the way my left knee, which has still got the arthritis and is all messed up, just plain old hurt. This new knee was definitely the thing to do. And at some point, where Mrs. Shark and I are talking about what I need to do about the other knee. But anyway, I was out doing yard work, and it was a beautiful day here. The temperatures were gorgeous, the sun was shining, and man, did I get cut up. I mean, all kinds of scratches and scrapes and those kind of things as I was doing yard work and stuff. So it came, it said to me that, well, our topic needs to be when do we decide we're going to be wearing long trousers or long sleeves? Protecting our skin. Going along with that are hats and gloves. So, yeah, it becomes a really interesting question because when you wear long trousers, long sleeve shirts, when you put a hat on, gloves on, you definitely are going to be warmer. And so if it's a very hot day and you start sweating and, you risk getting overheated, but then again, if you're getting all cut up and stuff, that's not a good thing either. Plus, if it's sunny and you're getting sunburn, well, now you're risking long-term exposure for skin cancer and that kind of stuff. So you really do need to balance wearing long sleeve shirts, long trousers, covering your head, and wearing gloves with the environment that you're working in. A little bit of common sense can go a long way, but hey, we're scrappers, so you got to question common sense when it comes to us scrappers. But it's one of those things where you want to really think about, okay, what am I going to be doing? Is there a reasonable potential for me to get cut up doing this? And if so, should I put on better protective clothing, right? Even when I was down in Florida and I was scrapping down in Florida, there are times when, despite the heat, the humidity, and being a red flag day, I might still wear my heavy duty trousers and heavier type shirt, because if I was going into a barn or a shed that had been left and nobody had been in it for a long time, there's a very good possibility that there would be snakes, there would be things that want to sting you and bite you and such. And so having my steel-toed boots on, having my heavier grade fire hose type trousers gave me a bit more protection for things that might want to bite or sting me. We still have biting and stinging things up here in the mountains of western North Carolina, not quite as bad as what Florida used to be, but it's still something that I think about. And you can also have long trousers, long sleeve shirts that are not necessarily really heavy canvasy type garments, so that you get that protection, but it's a little bit lighter weight, a linen, a light cotton, something like that, that will also let you sweat and cool off while you're protecting your skin. So it's definitely something to think about, whether you're protecting against a sunburn, scratches, cuts, bites and stings. These are all things that you want to try to protect yourself from. And you need to assess for yourself, are you allergic to bee stings? So you need to, give that additional consideration. Are you in some way immunocompromised that scratches and cuts can be a major issue for you? So you have your own personal calculus that you all need to think about. And it's worth thinking about it ahead of time. You've seen me in my videos, sometimes even in the shark cage. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. That's usually because it's chilly. Frequently, I'm in the shark cage with short sleeves and working because it's warm or something like that. But if I'm going to be grinding or doing things that are going to cause sparks or metal shards, then I can either put on leather sleeves that I have. So it's just, sleeves that go all the way up to, part way up my arms. So it's like having a long sleeve shirt on and the gloves, or I'll have a long sleeve shirt that I can put on over top of my short sleeve shirt in order to protect myself from the sparks or the metal shavings that might be flying all over the place, along with all of the usual other protections that you need, your eyes and things like that. So, what do you all do about your clothing concerns? Let's see. All right, Bunkmaster, I wear pants and long sleeves and take the heat. It's better, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, there's no issues there, man. Stay hydrated. But hey, if it's not. There's so many things that can cut you that, and you can wear lighter weight material. So yeah, take the heat, protect your body. Roger. Oxyacetylene torch and plasma cutters need long pants and leather boots. No shirts, no shorts, and tennis shoes. Absolutely, man. Yeah, straight up need that PPE if you're using that kind of stuff. No about it, doubt it. Plain scrapper. Yep, sunburn and scrapes mean I wear long pants even in the 90 temps. Scrapping or working in the brush. A gallon of sunscreen for your ginger self. Yeah, and that's another thing that depending upon just your normal makeup, I mean, like redheads tend to burn a lot more than other folks. So that's a very serious concern. And if you've had bad sunburns in the past, you're liable to be more prone to sun poisoning as you get older. So you also need to be careful. Be careful of that. JR Cat was doing yard work today, and the fire department showed up. Told me no burning till after 6. Okay, well, yeah, you got to pay attention to the burn notices because those fire hazards, depending upon where you are right now in the U.S., there's some pretty significant fire hazards going on, all around the country. But yeah, you want to watch out for those fires. And if you are burning stuff, yeah, you don't need to have this huge fire going. Usually, be a little bit careful. Make sure you have a hose and stuff like that with you. Absolutely. Ripstop trousers are good. They sure are. And I tell you, Duluth makes. I should see if Duluth would sponsor me. Because I wear a lot of Duluth clothes, whether it's their heavy grade fire hose work trousers, their lighter weight ripstops. The same with their work shirts. So yeah, maybe I should look into having Duluth sponsor me at some point. Oh man. Oh yeah, we have copperheads up here. I'm told we have rattlesnakes. I haven't seen any up here, but copperheads would be the big thing up here in the mountains. That would be an issue. I just found, well, in fact, yesterday while I was working outside, I found a snake. I it was it wasn't it was just a little baby snake, and because I had gloves on and everything, I was able to just pick it up, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't a copperhead. It had no copperhead look to it at all. Wasn't exactly sure. I think it was just some sort of common garden snake or something like that. But it was young, and so it was like no big deal to pick it up and throw it out in the woods because there's no way that little mouth was gonna bite through anything I had on. And JR Cat says the wife has to wear full biosuit for poison ivy. Oh man, no kidding. We get some serious poison ivy up here, and I've been on a serious battle with the poison ivy and the poison oak up here since I moved into this place. And fortunately, I've been lucky so far. Knock on plastic veneer covered wood. Um, I, I react to poison ivy, but not really bad. I'll get itchy and stuff like that. But if I know that I'm going to be doing yard work out in the wooded area where the poison ivy is bad, I make sure I have long sleeves and long trousers. And then when I'm done, I come in. I don't even take those clothes. Don't come in the house. I go in the garage. I take off the shirt and the trousers. They go right in the wash, and then I go right up and get a shower, and a tepid temperature shower. Because if you get too warm a shower, your pores will open up, and if you did get any of that poison ivy oil on you, it can get into your pores easier. So a tepid to a cool shower with soap, wash that stuff off. Poison ivy and poison oak sap is kind of thick, and you gotta do some scrubbing to get it off of you. And so I've seen some pretty good documentation that shows that if you get it off of you within like about 10 minutes, you're probably going to be okay. Again, it depends on your sensitivity, and you absolutely don't want to burn poison ivy. Never, never, never burn poison ivy. Talk about a way to make yourself really sick. Because if you inhale the poison ivy that's burning, it'll get in your lungs. Now you got a whole nother problem. Plus, it can get through your clothes. And I've seen people that have that have, gotten sick from burning poison ivy, and it is not pretty. I mean, it is definitely almost, it can be emergency room kind of stuff. E-Waste Jill's in the house. Welcome, Jill. Great to have you on board. All right. Now, this next issue is, and you saw it in the thumbnail. This is a weird time for us, but we are at a point in the scrap markets where copper is going down, but scrap steel is going up. I mean, when does that happen in our world? Let's take a look at this. Here is the Trading Economics website again, and we're looking at copper, and excuse me, sorry about that. So we're looking at copper here, and this is the 1 year chart for copper. We're going to bring up the candlesticks. Each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. And we see the copper futures in the U.S. fell below 540 a pound in March, the lowest in 3 months, and tracking decline for key industrial metals amid strong dollar and concerns that high energy prices will dent manufacturing demand. Key oil and LNG prices held most of their surge this month after the conflict in the Persian Gulf resulted in the destruction of energy infrastructure and halted energy exports from tankers. Developments limited the outlook for manufacturing by biting factories' margins and limiting consumers' purchasing power. Additionally, the upside inflation risk drove the Federal Reserve policymakers to strike a hawkish tilt, meaning they might raise interest rather than lower it in their economic predictions, lifting the dollar and pressuring greenback-priced commodities. The drop was aligned with 6-year copper inventories in the London Metal Exchange and record high stocks. And so you've just got a lot of influences that are driving down the price of copper. We had been loving the increases in copper. We had some nice increases until we announced the tariffs here in the U.S. That dropped the prices again, and now they're starting to climb. They were slowly coming back up again, now we've got the additional pressure of this conflict. So you've got the tariffs that were imposed by the U.S. administration. You've got the war that's going on that is driving up energy costs, and there's some huge impacts on copper. Now remember, this is when they show these copper prices. This is for your London Metal Exchange type coppers, your anodes, your more pure grades of copper. And so the question becomes, what about copper scrap? And there is an argument that says, well, copper scrap should probably do a little better because just like with aluminum, it takes less energy to take copper scrap and use it for copper things, but it all depends on what the grade requirements are. There are some things that you can use secondary or recycled copper in. There are some things you can't. But secondary copper uses less energy than primary copper to produce, and so it'll be interesting to see how soon the yards start dropping prices, and how far they drop those prices. So what are we going to do here? Well, first, let's take a look at the forecast for copper. And the forecast for copper shows it coming back up again to over $6, back up where we had been. So we put in that long-term forecast for copper going up, and then we can say to ourselves as scrappers, well, let's Um, let's maybe hold on to some copper. Uh, I had been when copper was going up and stuff, and we were talking about maybe hold back 10-20% of your better grades of copper, sell your lower grades of copper to make your cash flow. Nothing's changed from that perspective, right? Perhaps even more so now that the prices are down. So you sell your number 3 insulated copper wire, your number 2 insulated copper wire to meet your cash flow requirements. Hang on to your number 1 copper, your bare bright copper, if you can, if you don't need the cash, so that you can take advantage of these future price rises for copper down the road. Now, of course, this all depends on if you can afford to do that. Some people need the cash flow, like Mike, E-Waste Mike. He's running his business. He's got to buy stuff, his inventory. He's got rent payments, utility payments, those kind of things. Small business folks, they need to pay the bills, so they need to balance the future gains against the cash they need right now to pay their bills. Hobby scrappers usually are not in that kind of situation, and hobby scrappers can usually wait it out. Copper can be a really good metal to hang on to because it's kind of dense. It's not going to take up a lot of space. You can usually hang on to quite a bit of it in 5-gallon buckets and bins, and then when the prices turn around, you can do pretty good. So yeah, I'd say if you can hang on to your copper, you might want to hang on to it and see, wait for those prices to come back up again. So, let's see. Going back up through the chat to see what folks have said about copper. JR Cat was saying his wife had actually been to the hospital from because of poison ivy. So man, that's I'm glad she's okay. Glad she made it through that. We had somebody join us here too. Let's see, Red Light 343. Welcome, great to have you here. Kind of a new name, unless that's a different name for somebody that I don't recognize. So welcome, always great to have you here. Joe's talking about prices going up for oil, 30 to fill my tank. Gas up to 50 now. Yeah, and it's rough. Let's see. Mike is saying that his yard dropped 41 cents in 4 days. Man, that's a bit of a drop. That is a pretty serious drop. And I don't know what's happened here because while I've been out of action from my surgery, I haven't been making, I've been taking materials in. So yeah, I'm seeing what's happening with spot prices, but I haven't had to go to the scrapyard in quite some time. So, all right. So now we saw what was going on with copper, but I'm gonna head on down here. This is the kind of thing that we just don't see this a lot. It's always good when it does. We like to see this when it does do this. But here is scrap steel. So this is a 1-year look at scrap steel. And, we started out the year with steel dropping. And we kind of had a bit of a climb up for a while, and then it dropped off again, and then it's been slowly climbing. We may not have seen these prices reflected. Some yards were starting to reflect some of those. And, whether you want to say that the upward trend came up to here and then we had this plateau of volatility or what have you, but there's no missing this very sharp climb here. that's a pretty steep climb out for shred steel. Now let's take a look at, or for scrap steel. So let's see here, let's take a look at the candlesticks. Now each chart represents, each candlestick is 1 day of trading. I'm going to zoom in on this later part. And what we can see is these prices went up a lot in 1 day. On March 12th, we went up, we started down, we opened the market at 383.5, closed at 390, and that's US dollars a ton. It climbed again, and what's interesting about here on March 13, this huge wick, look at that. The maximum price that day was 404. The market closed at 396, but it had gone up quite a bit. Now the market's trying to figure out what's going on. We have a little price correction going on here, but you know, we see these prices going up, which is weird because we're not, you know, as scrappers, we're not used to seeing scrap steel go up like this, you know, when copper's going down. So the question then becomes, is your yard going to do anything about this? You know, because the yards have to be really careful about, you know, they can't just keep, with especially with shred steel, they can't keep matching a lot of these prices because, you know, they have a lot of material that you know, could affect them. And it all depends on what their contracts are for material. So, you know, hopefully we would see some price increases at our yards. So let's see. Roger is, wait a minute, let me go up here. I want to make sure I did. Richard joined us. I thought I saw somebody come in. Richard, great to have you here, man, as always. So Roger is saying yards here still at 140 a ton, the same price from 2022. Man, that's a long time to be stuck at one price, but I get it. You know, I mean, I can kind of understand where some of the yards are coming from. JR Cat took steel in last week, and he was at 91 cents a pound. Andy Patadoo shred price is still only 9p a kilogram. I'm not going to do the math. You all can figure that one out. The bottom line is it hadn't changed. And Andy says, when I called, I told them about the global rise, but they said it's canceled out by the fuel and electricity prices. That makes a lot of sense, Andy. Makes a lot of sense when you think about it. On the position of the scrapyard, that takes a lot of energy. They're paying for fuel for those Sheboygans, for the cranes, for the trucks, for the forklifts. Then it has to get loaded into trucks that then have to transport it someplace, you know, to a mill where it's going to get more energy applied to it to turn it into other stuff. So that makes a tremendous amount of sense that the cost of the energy is offsetting the price of the shred steel itself. So that's a really good point. I'm glad you made that comment because that really does, you know, sort of help us understand why we may not be seeing the prices going up at our yards, even though the price in the international market sense is going up. That's a huge deal. Yeah, you know what, Roger? I don't think they care. It's a good point, but I don't think they really care. You know, so I thought it was interesting during the week as I was, you know, preparing for today. I was like, man, steel is going up, but copper's going down, and it's just such a weird thing to see play out. And maybe as the energy costs continue to go up, we'll see shred steel start coming down too. Because, when you think about it, if the energy costs are going up, well, construction is going to slow down, and whether it's the steel that you need for the buildings that the data centers are going into, or the steel that you need for housing or for roads or whatever, that all takes energy. You got to move it around. You got to make it, and those energy costs climbing is gonna have an impact. So hopefully we don't see the steel prices go down at our scrap yards, but hey, it's possible. It is possible. All right. BH Nate. Welcome, BH Nate. Great to have you here. It looks like it's going to be a good scrapping season. My yard has been bad prices for a year. Copper I'm holding because festival season is starting and I make pirate treasure coins. Very cool. I mean, that's the thing to do, right? If you have the skill and the talent, the skill and the talent, well, that's redundant. If you have the skill and you can make things like coins or jewelry, that's a great way to sell copper, because now you're doing a value add. It's not just the scrap or the bullion price of the copper. It's you've done something with it that can add value to it. And that's a very cool way to make some better money on your copper than just selling it as copper. That is very cool. Nate, thank you. I'm glad you told us about that. That's really cool. Eways Jill is saying that scrap yards on railroad tracks save transportation costs. There's a giant one in Chattanooga. Yeah, now, a lot of the trains still run. The trains are burning diesel, so it is still going to affect them. But trains are always less expensive per pound than trucks, and truckloads are always less expensive than smaller loads, LTL loads, and LTL loads are always less expensive than shipping by the post office or UPS. So yeah, the scrap yards that have easy access to rail lines can usually get better prices than the yards that have to ship everything by trucks. Yeah, those don't they sound cool? Pirate coins. They do sound very cool. And Nate, if you want to send a picture of them to sharkscrapper@gmail.com, I'd love to take a look at what you're doing there. That'd be very cool. Gypsy Love Copper. Who is this? Mango Dango. That's a fun name, Mango Dango. Welcome. Great to have you on board. Let's see. Richard says he turned in 2 weeks ago to get some vacation money, and his yard downgraded most everything. I was expecting about 2K and left angry with 820. Oh man. Yeah, that would bum me out too. It's like, now, for steel, I don't really care what steel prices are, because for me, I end up with empty computer shells and the shells of electronics. I have to get rid of them. So the fact that I get any money at all for them is a penny. But yeah, if I was going in expecting to make about $2,000 and the yard had lowered prices and I didn't even get half of that, yeah, I could see where you'd be kind of bummed out. Okay, that was fun. I love learning about those coins. That's great. I'm hoping Nate sends pictures, because I'd love to see that. Now, last week, I had some folks ask about. I had some questions about the prices for stocks or investing in the stocks of companies that either it's the mining company. Well, I think the specific question dealt with mining companies. So I got to thinking about what would be a good way to to do this. Now, there are certainly in the tool that I use. And by the way, for those of you that are new, because there's a bunch of new names here, when I talk stocks, I use this company, the Value Line Investment Survey, as my primary information source. The reason is they do not accept any advertising. So it's all subscription based. That allows them to be unbiased, data driven. Here's the numbers, and here's what the numbers are telling us. Now they do look at the company reports and the news and those sorts of things, but because they don't accept advertising, they don't have to pander to anybody, that they're reporting on, and so it's a very good baseline of information. Now, there are, I picked 3 categories. There is a specific category for mining companies. And I also took a look at the companies that support the mining industry, so your big equipment makers. And I also looked at the precious metal industry because that's mining for precious metals, the precious metal miners, and the folks that work with the precious metals, as well as those that deal with steel and aluminum and such. So those are the 3 categories that I took a good hard look into. It's kind of interesting. So let's take a look, and I may refer to this as we're going on here. As you can see, this is a really big book. And what happens is every week I get one of these. Here, let me flip it over. So every week I get one of these issue updates, and it will have specific categories in it. I go through it, I update all my charts, and we used to talk about these regularly. I stopped doing that for some reason. I don't know why I stopped doing that. But I can always restart that if you all find it interesting. So I may go back into that book while we're talking, but let's go right over here to the first of the companies that has some bearing on this. Let me move this out of the way. So this is Caterpillar, and for those of you that are new here, let me explain too the way I grade companies. I have 3 criteria that I look at: cash flow per share, earnings per share, and dividends per share. I look back 17 years, and I want a company to have increasing cash flow per share, earnings per share, or dividends per share, any one of these, for the last 17 years. I will allow them a flat or a falling or down year in order to be qualified for me to consider investing in them. Now, layer on top of that I am a pretty boring dividend investor. So I need them to be paying, at least 3%, preferably over 4%, if I'm going to take an interest in investing in them at this stage. Unless I've just got crazy money, that drops in my lap from somewhere and I'm going to mess around. But in this case, because the question is, we were looking at these, the companies from the mining perspective. Here's what we found. Caterpillar. The reason why I was looking at Caterpillar is, of course, they make the big equipment that you would expect the mining companies, if the mining companies are doing good, Caterpillar's probably doing good. They only pay 0.9% interest. All right, that's terrible. At least they're paying some sort of interest. All right, and by the way, this interest rate, this dividend yield, and this price per share was valid today. I just looked it up today. Used another source. I used my Charles Schwab account to look up the price as it is right now. Of course, the markets are closed, but here we are. $685.50 a share. Holy bajoli. That's really expensive, okay? Now, on the good side, Caterpillar would be qualified for me to consider investing in because they are what I call a div zero. That means that for the last 17 years, their dividends have gone up or are projected to go up for this 26 to 27 forecast every year with no flat years in there. All right. If we look at that graphically, what we see here is we see the cash flow per share, the earnings per share, and the dividends per share. And we see that the dividends, went up without dropping. Cash flow and earnings are doing pretty good. I mean, overall, when you look at this, that's not bad, right? You got to have a little bit of stomach to put up with the churn, but overall, it's not bad. Now, the interesting thing that I found with the discussion on Caterpillar is very similar to why the next company is also doing okay right now. So we're going to jump over to Cummins. CMI, their dividend yield is 1.5%. Again, that's not good. And their share price is 533.54. Holy cow, that's insane. But again, they are qualified as a div zero. All right, so, and if we look at that graphically, we see they haven't had quite as much churn as Caterpillar. And their dividend rate, it looks like, their board is trying to keep it around that 1.9-ish, 2% kind of rise. It's a very consistent, pretty straight line going up. As I dug a little bit deeper into both these companies, it turns out that the thing that's really driving them their money right now is their generator business. So we have talked a lot about AI data centers and how much energy goes into an AI data center, and therefore that's why data centers are using a lot of aluminum and copper because of all the wiring that goes along with all that energy that's moving around, and all those AI data centers. Well, they have to have backup generators, and who makes backup generators? Cummins, Caterpillar. So, so it's that's the deal. Now, Roger brings up a good point. His right here, his bank has better return on CDs. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you should invest in either of these companies. And by the way, I'm not qualified to give financial advice, right? I mean, I'm not a CPA. I'm not certified investor or any of that kind of stuff. This is just what I do when I'm looking at stocks. Okay, so no financial advice being handed out here. I'm not going to invest in either one of these. I don't have stock in either one of these. They are definitely not a dividend play. But what I thought was interesting is that the place, they're doing okay right now, and they're a reasonable investment if you got that kind of money for the year and the next 3 to 5 years because of their generator business supporting AI data centers. Now, as an aside to that whole AI data center stuff, I found a really interesting video that was done by Business Insider. That's the same group that interviewed me for a piece that they did on electronic scrapping a couple years ago now. And one of the things that was really fascinating for me is how much water and electricity really gets consumed by AI data centers. I shared that video as a post. So if you want to see it, go to the Shark Scrapper YouTube homepage, look at my posts. You'll see a recent post where I shared this Business Insider piece. I was amazed. I was floored. I mean, I knew that they used a lot of electricity. That part, I expected. But the amount of water that they consumed, holy cow. I mean, it's a lot of water. And it's a lot of water because the way they're cooling the data centers, right? So they're evaporating off a lot of water with the type of coolers that they use. Just unbelievable. So And it was also interesting to me, and where I'm going with this with the generators is that the way Business Insider was able to get a lot of this information that the companies like Google and Amazon and Meta are trying to protect is they went in and they looked at the air quality permits that were issued for all the backup generators that were going into the plants. And then they were able to use that information to figure out where the data centers were going in so they could map them out, how big they were, and those kind of things. Really fascinating the way they went about doing that. Anyway, I recommend that you all, when we're done later on, sometime during the week, go check out that post, take a look at that Business Insider piece. Really fascinating. All right, so our next, the next business that I thought I would look at then, still kind of associated with, mining and stuff, but it's a steel company. So let's put you down here and let's bring you up here. So this is Nucor. Now, of all the steel companies, and there's probably a dozen or so that get reviewed by the investment survey, there's only one that is qualified for me to even consider looking at. It's Nucor. The rest of them do not meet my criteria. Nucor was qualified as a Div 0, so that means that their dividends are going up every year for the last 17 years, actually longer than that. But hey, they're only paying 1.4%, so it's not like they're burning down the store here for us, right? And that's on $159 a share. Okay, so when stocks get north of $100 a share, they're kind of not in my league. I'm like, whoa, I don't know about that. But at 1.4%, I'm not really that interested. But the really interesting thing to me was that Nucor, the whole discussion about Nucor and steel, and this carried through with all of the steel companies that were looked at by the Value Line Investment Survey, is that it's what people are looking at is what's going on with the tariffs, what's going on with energy, what's going on with what the government is doing. And there's very little discussion about how well the company is actually being organized and run and managed and stuff, because you have all these other things, outside influences that are affecting whether or not the steel companies are making money or not making money. I thought that was kind of interesting that it really doesn't matter if the people running the company are doing stuff right, because the government is driving a lot of these prices more so than the company. And now we get into companies that are really into more of the actual mining. So here we have Royal Gold. Now, Royal Gold doesn't necessarily own gold mines. They own the rights to gold coming out of mines. So it's an interesting arrangement. But they are also a Div 0. And it's one of the few companies that, the precious metals type companies, that meets my criteria. Now, that's a terrible dividend return, 0.9. Again, you're going to do better just getting, CDs. Okay, so, and that's on $215.30 a share. But what I thought was really interesting was that, they're doing the right thing. They're taking care of investors. They're managing their company properly. And, what I thought was interesting is you'd think that with the way gold and silver had been going for this last year, that they would have been doing a little bit better, but on the whole, they're okay. But again, I'm not going to invest in them. Now we get to a real mining company here. The crux of the question, what really drove me to look at all this stuff, and this mining company is Kaiser Aluminum. All right, so here we are getting to, an actual mining company. and they're mining all over the world. Their dividend yield is 2.9%. So it's kind of almost in an area that you might consider investing in. And that's valid today. I just looked it up today. And that's on a price of $107.04 a share. But here's the rub. They are not qualified in anything. Oops, here, wait a minute. Get that over here. There you go. Cash flow per share, earnings per share, dividends per share. Yeah, no, they're not qualified by my standards, right? What I would consider a company that I might invest in. This, for me, would be a very speculative investment if I was to make this, and I don't see any reason to do this because I can get better dividend yields on companies that have a much better history of paying dividends than these guys. However, that said, it's something to consider. If you really want to get into a mining company, maybe this might be something worth looking at. The other company that is a name that we all know. We see this one frequently. It's called Rio Tinto. So if you do any looking at the mining companies out there, you'll see Rio Tinto. And this one, if you were going to be speculative and consider investing in a mining company, this might be someone you would take a look at. 4.8%, so it's a dividend yield that I might consider. And it's only $83 a share, so it doesn't cross that $100 a share that scares me off. But they're not qualified at all, as far as I'm concerned. And for me, being a boring dividend investor, I at least want to see this dividend thing to be like a div 0 or a div 1, right? A flat or maybe one flat year and everything else going up. But yeah, no, they're not. If you look at this, you got it's just as a dividend stock, it's really iffy for me. But if you're willing to take a little more risk, that's not a bad yield. And if you want to get into a mining company, well, that's not necessarily a bad price. Rio Tinto has got mines all over the world. You have probably read about them and mines, but it means that they're exposed to a lot of the challenges that's going on with mines that are out there. It's a challenging market for sure. So let's see, what kind of questions have you all come up with on any of these stocks? Yeah, Roger's saying that was a really cool video. He still has it saved in his favorites. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty fascinating. U.S. Steel. You want to see about U.S. Steel? Wait a minute. I think. Hang on. Let me see if I can help you out there. Oh, I think they are. Wait a minute. I got to remember which one they're under. Here, hang on. Steel industry. Oh, they got bought out. Yeah, so, right, that was that big investment that the Japanese made. So they're not being listed anymore as U.S. Steel. So there you go. And yeah, your comment, yeah, you say since Japan got involved. So I'm trying to remember what they got turned into when they were sold out. So yeah, that's that'll be interesting to see, Roger, how that one plays out. What becomes of that? They might be. Let me see if Nippon Steel is listed here. Let's see. Hang on. Hang on. By the way, we're still in daylight savings time, and Ireland doesn't go until next week, so we're not cutting into Irish's time here. We'll, I'll when I end, you'll all be able to take a break, get something to eat and stuff before we go over to Ireland. So let's see. Nippon Steel is not listed in this study. So the Value Line Investment Survey doesn't cover them, and that might be an issue of the way Nippon Steel does their reporting and their data. So if the people at the Value Line Investment Survey can't get straight numbers and such, then it's very hard for them, and they won't cover a company. And I don't know if Nippon, because I don't invest in Nippon, I don't know if they're publicly traded, if there's issues or restrictions with them. So I apologize. I just can't answer the question on what's going on with them. Anyway, there we go. So it was interesting that and I appreciate the question to look at the mining companies. Out of the dozen or so mining companies that the investment value line survey covers, there were only a couple that that were anywhere near worth looking into. And from my perspective, they're not worth investing in because I'm such a boring dividend investor. If you want to be more speculative, then by all means take a look at the mines that are out there. But like they used to say back during the days of the gold rush, the people that made the most money during the gold rush were the folks selling the shovels and pickaxes to the gold miners. And I think that's kind of true still. You look at Caterpillar and Cummins, they're doing okay. And that might be the way to play the game. Or you look at someone like the Royal Gold companies that buy the rights to the material that's coming out, and then they don't have to necessarily worry about all the overhead costs and stuff that that go into that. So those are the ways to look at that. Of course, if you have any specific questions you want me to look at, feel free to shoot me an email, ask the question, drop a line in the comments on the replay, and I'll be happy to see what I can dig up for you. I do need to also say that it'll be this week I will be out of communication. So if you do send me any emails or questions this week, it might be pretty slow as I get back, for me to get back to you. And I'm not exactly sure how quick I'll be getting back into things, because in addition to getting my knee operated on, what I haven't told everybody is that I was also diagnosed with cancer. So this week I'm going in for cancer surgery to remove a tumor. Now, the good news is it's a very isolated tumor, and so we think that removing the tumor is going to solve the problem. Scans and tests have shown that it's nowhere else in my body right now, and so my medical team is pretty certain that the surgery tomorrow is all that's going to be necessary. In fact, they have not even planned for radiation or chemo follow-up. We will do a bunch of testing and we'll see how this progresses. But I will be in surgery for quite a bit of time tomorrow, and then I don't know how soon I'll be back, back home. But if it's possible for me to respond to emails and such, I will. I won't be able to actually answer questions and dig up answers and stuff probably for a while. And of course, this further delays me getting Shark Scrapper as a scrapping business back up and operating. So I don't know what that even means for the way up for videos and stuff coming out. I'm going to have to really rethink how I do my weekly videos and stuff with everybody, because I was not planning on this at all. And I had pre-recorded material in anticipation of my knee surgery. But then this additional wrinkle showed up, and yeah, we're kind of running out of pre-recorded material. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of material I can come up with to keep helping all of you in the world of scrapping, especially as it relates to electronic scrapping, and that wonderful world that we live in. So I, will be under the knife tomorrow, and then I'll let you know when we're back in battery, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how this all plays out. I appreciate the goodwill, the good wishes there, everybody. Much appreciated. Got a good medical team here, and one of the things that I will say, moving here to the mountains of Western North Carolina, I didn't know this, but the VA hospital that's here is the second best VA hospital in the country. And it routinely ranks as the best hospital in this region. So I've got a really good medical team, and I've got a lot of confidence in the docs that are taking care of me. So we'll see how that plays out. And no, Mike, you are not allowed to talk to the medical team and convince them to do anything other than what I've told them to do. All right, everybody. I'm going to wrap things up here. We will be starting, 40 minutes or so over in Ireland. So, yeah, no neck tournament, no neck tourniquets. We're going to deal without that. I look forward to seeing you all over in Ireland in about 40 minutes or so. So go get yourself a cold drink, a snack, make a head call, do whatever you need to do before we head across the pond to Ireland. If you have autoplay enabled, I have the redirection set. So when I shut this stream down, you will automatically be redirected to the live stream. It'll be the placeholder page until Irish goes live. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then just go into YouTube, search, type in Scrapping Irish. You'll see the live stream come up. Please join us over there. It's always a lot of fun. We never know for sure what's going to happen, because it's driven so much by the questions that you all submit. So it's a different format than this one. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you all over there. If I don't see you over in Ireland, have an awesome week, and stay safe, everybody.